The truth of fructose and fatty liver. Is fruit safe? Today we are exploring a topic that has generated an immense amount of debate and confusion in the health and wellness space: fructose.
It is incredibly difficult to navigate the information right now. On social media, fructose is frequently labeled as the primary driver of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. I have even seen people advising against eating certain fruits.
Exactly. And that brings us to what we call the fructose paradox. On one side, you have that intense influence of social media. On the other side, clinical and scientific research consistently demonstrates that consuming whole fruits confers significant health benefits.
It seems like a massive contradiction. Is the fructose molecule found in processed foods chemically different from the one found in an apple?
Chemically, no. Fructose is the same monomeric sugar whether it is in a piece of fruit or high fructose corn syrup. To resolve the paradox, we have to look beyond the molecule itself. We need to understand how our bodies process it based on three critical factors: 1. Dose. 2. Delivery. 3. Timing.
All right, let's start with delivery. If the molecule is the same, why does the body react differently to an apple compared to a glass of soda?
It comes down to a concept called fructose flux, which refers to how much fructose reaches your system and how rapidly it arrives. Historically, scientists believed the liver was solely responsible for metabolizing fructose. However, recent research reveals that the small intestine actually serves as a metabolic shield for the liver.
A metabolic shield? How does that function?
When you consume fructose in small amounts that are released slowly, your small intestine is able to clear it almost entirely. It converts the fructose into glucose and other harmless metabolites before it ever enters your general circulation. In this scenario, only a negligible amount reaches the portal vein, effectively sparing the liver from any metabolic stress.
Ah, I see. So if the delivery is slow and measured, the small intestine handles the workload. But what happens when we drink a large soda or a glass of fruit juice?
That is when we consume fructose in high doses and in what we call free form. Without any physical barriers to slow it down, a massive amount of sugar hits the system all at once. This completely overwhelms the small intestine's processing capacity.
So when the small intestine is overwhelmed and the shield fails, where does that excess fructose go?
The excess spills directly into the bloodstream and heads straight for the liver, and this is where the unregulated process begins. Unlike glucose, which is carefully regulated by insulin, the liver processes fructose without typical metabolic checks and balances.
What are the consequences of the liver being forced to process all that excess sugar?
It triggers a process called de novo lipogenesis, which is the literal creation of new fat within the liver. Furthermore, this heavy metabolic load depletes cellular energy and leads to the accumulation of uric acid and inflammation. If this happens chronically, it directly results in fatty liver disease and can even progress to cirrhosis.
That is quite a severe chain reaction, and it is mentioned that the damage doesn't even stop at the liver.
It does not. The excess spills over into other vital organs. In the pancreas, it can induce insulin resistance. In the kidneys, it can lead to glomerular hypertension. To add to the problem, any fructose that the small intestine cannot absorb passes into the large intestine. There it disrupts the microbiome, reduces beneficial bacteria, triggers systemic inflammation, and further drives liver fat production.
Listening to that physiological breakdown makes fructose sound incredibly dangerous. How do we circle back to the fact that eating whole fruit is still highly recommended?
This is the resolution to the paradox, and it lies in the concept of the fruit matrix. In whole fruits, fructose is classified as intrinsic sugar. It is physically encased within a fibrous cellular structure.
So the physical structure of the fruit acts as a natural brake system?
Precisely. Your digestive system has to work to break down those fibrous walls, resulting in a slow, steady release of sugar. Additionally, whole fruits are packed with water, dietary fiber, and phytonutrients. These components actively attenuate the rate of intestinal absorption. It prevents the fructose from rushing the system, keeping the dose well within the capacity of your small intestine's shield.
That makes perfect sense. The fiber and structure protect us. But the research also mentioned that when we eat fruit matters. Could you explain the strategic timing effect?
This is a fascinating area of study. Research suggests that the small intestine's shielding capacity is significantly higher when we are in a fed state, meaning during or after a meal.
So if I eat fruit as a dessert after a balanced meal, my intestine is actually better equipped to protect my liver than if I ate it on an empty stomach?
Exactly. If you are consuming fruits that have a higher sugar-to-fiber ratio, eating them as part of a meal offers the maximum level of liver protection.
But I have also read that eating an apple before a meal can be beneficial for weight management. How does that factor in?
That is the strategic alternative. Studies show that eating a whole apple approximately 15 to 20 minutes before a meal can reduce your total energy intake during that meal by about 15%. Because it is a high-fiber fruit, it creates satiety.
So the strategy depends entirely on the individual's health goals?
Correct. If your goal is caloric control, high-fiber fruits before a meal are ideal. If your goal is maximum liver protection from sweeter fruits, saving them for after a meal is the scientifically sound approach.
This has been incredibly clarifying. To summarize, fructose itself is not an isolated poison. The health risks are entirely dependent on excessive doses of free sugars found in processed foods and beverages.
That is the perfect takeaway. Whole fruits are not the enemy. The presence of the fruit matrix and coexisting nutrients makes them safe, protective, and health-promoting.
It is reassuring to know that we do not need to fear fruit, provided we respect the biological mechanisms of our bodies. Thank you for breaking down the science for us, Alex.
It is my pleasure.